the first question that I would ask you, just for anybody watching, is what is your name and what do you do?
My name is Amanda Wittenborn, and I run a party supply company.
And a damn good one at
Yes, I think
that.
so.
Awesome. So my first question for you is what was what were you experiencing before you enrolled in coaching? And what is it that inspired you to actually make the decision to do it?
So last year was a really tough year for me, and I was struggling in a lot of different ways. I felt anxious all the time, which was not natural for me. I was waking up in the middle of the night with panic attacks. I was dealing with a lot of fear and worry. And I think the biggest thing for me was that all my usual methods for dealing with those kinds of feelings and working through that were no longer working. So I went to my typical solutions and I was not getting any relief. And what prompted me to reach out to you was that I'm friends with another one of your clients. And it's actually one of my favorite stories to tell because we're in a mastermind together. And he showed up to the mastermind with like sunbeams coming out of his eyes. I was like, what is going on with this dude? And he got to his turn in the mastermind and he was just lit up from the inside out. And he said he started working with his coach again. And I was like, I'm going to need the name of that coach.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He's a great dude, the guy that referred you. So I'm glad that you two are connected and that his results inspired you to reach out. I always love that story as well. So
Yeah.
I
I
appreciate
mean,
you
if
sharing
I
that.
could describe what he looked like, like you just could see this glow. And I was like, what is going on with him?
Amazing.
Yeah.
So throughout the coaching, what were some of the biggest wins or insights for you that you experienced throughout the process of the coaching?
I think one of the biggest things that stands out to me is that all of the wisdom and knowledge and knowing was already inside me, and you helped bring it out. I remember after our liberation session, texting the friend and saying, I'm so wise. Like, I can't believe how much I had inside me and how much just wisdom and like I knew all the answers already. It was just tapping into it. And that just really blew me away because, I think I deal with some self doubt sometimes and, wondering if I'm doing the right thing. And for sure, when I started working with you, that was a very big issue I was having, which again was not something I typically struggled with. I always felt like I understood my purpose and I was on the right path, but I got knocked off of that and I was questioning everything. And so after that session, to feel like, no, I do know what I'm doing and I have so many answers was a really big takeaway for me.
Amazing. And yes, you are so wise. I remember your session and all the wisdom that came through. So a lot of people, one thing that I find interesting, and I'm wondering if you could speak to this, is that liberation session sounds awesome to a lot of people in terms of like what the result is, but at the same time, I realize as the person facilitating it that many people don't have a compartment in their brain to understand exactly what's happening during that session. So, like, how would you describe the experience of the session? Like, what did you like about it? Um, what did you expect it to be, and what did it meet those expectations, or was it something entirely different?
Yeah, I don't know if my expectations were what it actually was. So I had a description of it from friend, and yeah, he didn't quite capture it. I don't know that I'm going to really be able to capture it other than it wasn't hypnosis. It isn't meditation. Maybe it's like active meditation, imagination meditation would be a good way to describe it. I was surprised, right? Because you're asking questions and guiding things through. And like for me, I'm a very visual person, so it was almost like my brain just made up these movies for me to watch. And so I'm watching a movie in my mind. And I mean, I guess it was being made up, but like it really related to so many of the struggles that I was having in seemingly unrelated ways. I remember one of the things was skinning my knee, and it spoke to hurt that I was feeling with people not being there for me. But in my movie, it was a little girl skinning her knee. So it was really fascinating, and just to allow my brain to kind of actively imagine and to watch it, and then again to pull all that wisdom from these scenarios that didn't really, as I was experiencing them, seem to connect to anything I was struggling with, and yet each one connected to a really deep issue that I was facing.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great description of it. I always like to tell people, imagine taking a magic carpet ride through your own mind, like like correcting and fixing and tying up loose ends that just from your past you didn't realize were even there.
Yeah.
So I remember yours was really cool because you had all these vivid experiences, and I was like, man, I wish I had vivid experiences like that, but I'm not super visual myself. But yeah, everybody's different in the way that they experience it. And I remember you saying specifically, you're like, that was not what he described. Like you're like, it was awesome. That's not what he said it was.
Right. Right. And I think what I pictured, which is kind of silly, is have you ever seen those TikToks where people go to these retreats and do like the deep breathing and they're just like hysterically crying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be more like that.
Oh, oh yeah, like the breathwork things where people just
Yeah.
start like screaming and crying. No, it's not
Yeah.
that.
So it's not that. And I was very grateful that it wasn't that because I was just, of course there were emotions involved. But I guess I feared that it was going to be something wild, and it was, it was
No, I mean that's a choice. Like people can decide to do that, but the way that it's structured is very intentionally like it's not a performance, it's just a direct path to your emotional liberation. And it might be really cool and magical, and the main intention of it is to go straight for what it is that you're seeking. So I'm glad that you said that because I think some people imagine it's going to be like a breathwork seminar where they're like crying and like reliving traumas, and it's not.
no, it is not that. But I definitely was afraid it might be.
Yeah, I think you speak to a lot of people's trepidations with that.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. So, in terms of like some of your takeaways, whether it was from the liberation session or the integration coaching that followed, I know you've implemented new habits into your life, one in which I think was the first thing that we did, which is how you start your mornings. So could you speak to that and how that's impacted the quality of your everyday?
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite things that we did. And it's so simple in that I start my morning with something that is just for me. And for me, creativity is a really big, important part of my life. And so to do something that is just for me means to be creative for no purpose. My business is very creative. And so I'm constantly designing products for my business. And again, at the time I started working with you, I was really feeling like abused creatively, that my creativity was just being used for product creation, even though I was the abuser. Um,
You're like, it was my business and the business was abusing me.
yes, yes. But I had stopped designing because of it, because it was almost this like rebellion of I'm not going to design just to make products. Like and so the shift for me was what could I do that's creative that was for no other purpose than just because I liked it and just because I wanted to do it. And it changed everything. The amount of joy I felt waking up in the morning and while I am doing whatever I want, I was seeking more joy in my daily life. And that has been a huge impact to just my joy in general. Allowing myself, I decided that 2 hours was like the ideal amount of time for me that I wanted to spend. Because for me, when I get into a creative project, I want to be in it for a little bit and I want to experience it for a bit. So to know that the first 2 hours of my day after my kids go to school is for me to do whatever I want, however I want, has just been really freeing. And I look forward to deciding what to do each morning. Most of my mornings lately have been crocheting, which has been bringing me great joy. But when I first started, I was painting. I was making large, funny wood signs for my front yard. And, because I started doing that, it brought back the joy in creativity for me. I'm able to create for my business joyfully again without feeling like I'm being abused, which I couldn't see a way out of when last year. And so to be able to sit down and make products again with joy is a huge accomplishment for me. And it brings on more creativity. So by being creative, I like to say I practice creativity. And so what have we practiced, we get better at. So the more I do it, the better I get at it, and the more creative ideas are coming to me.
That's amazing. I remember it was like a few weeks ago on a group call. Someone else, I was sharing that idea with someone else who's new to the program, and they were like, "Okay, I'll try it." And then you chimed in, and you're like, "It's gonna change your life." Like you're like, "I didn't realize that it did until right now that I'm seeing you like about to embark." Like it is life changing to start the day with something that actually excites you. That's not obligatory. It
Yep.
just changes everything. So, what was some of the impact in like other areas of life, like relationships that you have, either with like family, friends, colleagues? Like, what did you notice in terms of those relationships from the work that you did with the liberation session as well as the integration?
I mean, I'm more peaceful in general. Um, so I don't feel constant anxiety anymore. I don't feel like I'm living in fear. And so you can imagine how you might be to family members if you're constantly anxious. While I always tried to behave myself, I'm sure that my patience was thinner. Um, there's more laughter, I think I'm funnier. I was always funny, but I'm funnier now. I have a lot more patience. My family unit is really tight and full of love to begin with. And I think for me, it just was a weight off my shoulders. And so that I know that ripples through to all of them. Um, whether I'm actually seeing distinct change, I think we were pretty solid to start with.
Hmm.
Um, but I did have somebody, I did post in a little group of like a small connected group of women that I had finished coaching, right? And that I had graduated. And that one of the things that we were working on was unshakable inner peace. One of the women, I had seen her a couple weeks earlier, and she's like, it really struck me when I saw you how peaceful you were. And so she had noticed
Hmm.
that when I saw her. She didn't say anything then, but once I had made the post, she was like, actually, I meant to tell you, you just had this calm about you.
Hmm.
So I think it's noticeable. Nothing really shakes me much anymore. And yeah, I think I've just really focused on myself and making sure that I feel good because I know when I'm my best, then my family gets the best of me.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Was there did you have like a favorite process or tool or technique that we used throughout that either you really enjoyed or you feel like you got a lot out of it?
The star,
The star, yes, I remember that.
the star. That was so unexpected when we went through that. And you said, well, why don't you just stay there? And I was like, wait, I can do that?
Mhm.
And that was like the most awesome thing. I was like, oh, I don't have to go back to that dull version of myself. I can be the star version of myself. That huge impact.
Amazing. Yeah, I love that exercise. It's not one that I use all the time. Depends on the client, right? But for what was coming up, it was the perfect thing to do, and I'm so glad that it stuck and
Yeah.
allowed you to live in as a version of yourself that is more resonant with who you authentically are, and that brings out the best.
And I think the coolest part about it was that I was struggling with the process we were doing at the time.
Hmm.
And you just moved right into something else, and that was it. And there were multiple times in coaching where I could tell the typical process just it was not going the way that we wanted it to. And you just always moved into some other technique until we got to the one that my brain wanted to do that day.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, it was I always love the ability to be dynamic, and I think that's one of the things that is not super common in coaching. Like most people, they have one modality that they're certified or trained in, and like they're like, I'm gonna make this work on you. It's just not like that's not how it goes. You got to
yep.
be able to be dynamic with these things. So I'm glad that you were able to experience that and appreciate that detail of being able to just like pivot and change course when we needed to so that we could get the result that you were seeking.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And that's my last question for you with this is if somebody is watching this and they're on the fence, they're like, I may want to do it, I don't know, like what would you tell them if like this was the right thing for them, but they were a little hesitant?
I mean, I remember struggling with the decision myself. And not once, but twice, because I did two packages. So even after working with you for the first package, I still was like, oh, I don't know. Um, I will say it works. Um, and like I just mentioned, you do know multiple techniques. And so if one thing isn't working, you always had something else to try. And so if you're willing to show up and be present and do the work, it will work. Like it will. It is an investment. I was like on my last shred of hope when you came across my path, in that I had tried everything else. I had done everything else and nothing else worked. And so for me, it was like, do I have it in me to just give one more thing a try? And I did, and I'm glad I did because I couldn't see past where I was when I hired you. And now looking back, had I known what I know now, I wouldn't have hesitated at all.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, Amanda, you've been one of my favorite people to work with. I always had a blast on all of our sessions, and you're just an absolute delight to do this work with. So I'm so glad to see your transformation and everything that you've taken away, and for you to realize how wise you've always been. Like, I love that.
Yes.
So I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity to have gotten to work with you here.
Me too. I'm sad that I don't need you anymore.
Yeah, which is my goal.
I know it is, but I like you so much, and I'm gonna miss working together. But obviously, we have hit the goal, right?
Yes, absolutely. So thank you for showing up for yourself to do the work, and thank you for trusting in me to play this role in your life.
Thank you.